It's the Guitar Dads!
Welcome to the Guitar Dads Podcast, a podcast for guitar dads by guitar dads. This week, a book with 6 stars, pouring waters on the Facebook flames, Soundgarden's being social again, and a new pedal. Is it a Bigsby deal? We're shifting the conversation this week on the Guitar Dads Podcast. Now, 2 dudes who love feeling the good vibrations, Matt and Dave.
Is it a Bigsby deal? Hey everybody, I'm Matt.
And I'm Dave. And Matt can't stop cracking up.
So I'll let the audience in on a little thing that goes on here with the podcast. Dave spent pay attention to these intros that Dave does, because it's clever stuff that Dave's doing. So you should listen to them, and hopefully you guys appreciate them. But I don't.
Clever is a strong term.
Dave writes it up and he puts them on our shared Google Drive that we use for the show notes and everything. And I try not to look at it at all. So it's like a surprise to me what he's going to say. And sometimes it's funny, like, is it a Bigsby deal?
Sometimes you're cracking up every week.
Anyway, is it too much? Yes, this is too much.
Yeah, it's too much. This week it's too much.
The answer is it's too much. So anyway.
Well, we just want to thank all of our subscribers out there, all of our followers. If you are listening to this on wherever you stream your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout, whatever, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Yeah, we really do appreciate it. And follow us on Instagram at Guitar Dads Pod. My fault, it hasn't been that active yet recently, but and also on Twitter. At Guitar Dads Pod, or find us on YouTube. And yeah, that's it. What are we talking about? What are we getting into this week? It's kind of a slower week, right?
Slower music news, and well, not so slow gear week. We got some stuff to talk about in the gear section, but yeah, a little slower on the news. But there's some interesting stuff we wanted to check in on the music news this week. The first one, news just came out. This is breaking news. Is Nikki Sixx, speaking of Motley Crue.
Speaking of, we can't get off of Motley Crue.
I guess apparently we're going to talk about Motley Crue for a while, but yeah. So
Nikki Sixx and the abominable snowman.
And the
we're not talking about him this week.
That's Vince Neil. Yeah, let's leave. Let's give Vince
a break.
Vince alone. He needs a break. Anyway,
that's why they were doing the stadium tour, because that's the only type of venue that can fit him nowadays. Oh, jeez, put him.
Here we go, folks.
Here we go.
Anyway, Nikki Sixx. Speaking of Motley Crue, Nikki Sixx, the brains behind Motley Crue, the founder of Motley Crue, Nikki Sixx, this main songwriter for Motley Crue, he is going to release a memoir, apparently. And it's going to be a tell-all. Now, here's the thing. He's going to do a tell-all, but I thought, so it's going to be more behind the scenes. I think he's teasing this now, like, oh, it's going to be this behind the scenes thing. It's going to be great. You're going to get some real dirt. The movie on Netflix, the biopic about the band was called The Dirt. Like, didn't she give us enough dirt in the movie The Dirt?
No, but
there's more dirt to be had?
This book, yeah, but he says he is writing about his first 21 years on the planet, right? So he already put out another book that was kind of like all the like inside scoop with Motley Crue and all.
Oh, really?
All his like all the shit that's gone on with him, right? And
this is like his origin story.
These are like the origin stories. Yeah, so I don't know how good this is going to be, but if you're a Motley Crue fan, or really a music fan in general, music books are usually kind of fun to read. So
yeah, it's a good point.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, maybe it's going to be good. I mean, Nikki Sixx is a cool dude. I mean, maybe he's got some cool. I know, like, if you watch the beginning of that movie, The Dirt, did you ever see that, Dave? A few years back on Netflix.
I've seen clips of it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Oh, definitely worth a watch. It's fun. I mean, it's not like great cinema, but it's like I would argue, like, the Bohemian Rhapsody is great cinema. It's like a great movie. The Dirt on Netflix, the Motley Crue story, is just like a fun time, right? So I wouldn't call it like great cinema. But anyway, you should definitely watch it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Nikki Sixx, like the beginning of that movie it talks a little bit about his origin story, how he just came from this horrible upbringing. Like his mom was a disaster. I think his dad was like a wife beater and maybe abused him. It's kind of a sad story that he has here. And that's why he kind of left home really early in his life, I think. And, ultimately ended up founding a band. So yeah, it's kind of sad. It's sad. So I'm like, I don't know, this might just be too sad.
It might be sad, but it's kind of like, it's good. I love this kind of insight. And I've read a number of biographies and memoirs and stuff like that from bands and musicians. And I always find it interesting because it's kind of cool. Like, you know the artist because you like their music, but you don't really know the artist. And you also don't know where their music came from and what influenced them and all those things. And you kind of think about musical influences, but we kind of forget about all the other life influences and things like that and why they became who they are, right?
Oh,
so
totally.
It's really cool stuff. And, if you ever get a chance to read, this was put out a long time ago, I think back in the 90s, maybe late 90s, early 2000s, was the Aerosmith biography. And that was a big book when it came out.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of good stuff in there, too. And it gives you a lot of great detail about the history of the band and the history of all members of the band and kind of how they came together. And it really kind of fills the gap of that, like who the band, like where did this band come from? Why are they who they are? And it's kind of cool,
It is cool when you hear the origin. I mean, origin stories are important. If you watch the Marvel cinematic universe, then you understand that origin stories are important.
Origin effects are important as well.
Yeah, origin effects are also incredibly good. Do you get into the Marvel stuff, Dave? Are you into that?
Also not a sponsor of the show.
No, we'd like them to be origin effects. Do you get into the Marvel movies, Dave?
No, it's not really my thing anymore. It would have been maybe like 20 years ago. It's not now.
I enjoy them. I think they're cool, but I'm like easily amused with movies. Like, just to be honest with you, I'm not very sophisticated. Like in general, no. I mean,
I would disagree with that.
No, but when it comes to movies, like, yes, I like the heavy movies that a lot of people like, but I also am easily amused. Like, as an example, I love the Fast and Furious franchise. Like,
you do. So you're excited about?
I can't get enough
about the upcoming film.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. I love it.
And it's not overdone. You don't think it's overdone?
I live my life a quarter mile at a time, Dave. Only in my mind.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
How many movies have they? Is this 9?
It's like 9 or 10.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's a lot of money. I mean, they're great, right? They're a lot of fun. I get a big kick out of them. So anyway, and Vin Diesel, I like the whole gang. It's just a great franchise of movies. And so is Marvel. I think Marvel's awesome too. It's a great time. So anyway, on that note,
yeah, I can see what you're saying, but I think you're a little more sophisticated.
But the origin stories,
origin stories are cool.
So this is Nikki Sixx origin story. We look forward to reading it. Why are you? Sounds like you're going to read it, Dave. Am I going to read it? Nah, probably not.
You know what? I might read it. I don't know. I might read it. What the heck? Give it a shot.
Maybe I'll read it too. Why not?
Well. Yeah, we can have a little book club podcast and discuss.
Yeah, I think we should. We should have like a podcast book club. We'll talk about the book. I like that idea.
Talk about the book. There are lots of other books out there that we could get into. But
speaking of books,
there's
a little dust up going on with Facebook. Well, how's that for a transition?
Nice transition.
How's that for a transition, man? I'm only a couple of margaritas in, so I'm on my game.
Facebook transitions. I like that, and I will comment on it.
So what's going on with Facebook? So our old buddy here, Roger Waters.
Were you friends with him?
Roger Waters is stirring stuff up. He's like Mr. Stir the Pot lately.
As usual.
And I don't know if so this, eventually we'll get to a hot take that I heard on another podcast about this whole thing with Pink Floyd, but let's talk about this because it's amusing as well as the other thing. So Roger Waters has come out and revealed to us that he was made some
big reveal.
Yeah, he was made some unbelievable offer by Facebook to use the song "Another Brick in the Wall" for I don't even remember what it was for. It was for some kind of launch of something that they were doing on Facebook.
Yes.
Do you remember
Yes.
exactly what it was?
I don't remember exactly. Yeah, some kind of thing.
It's kind of less important. But what's funny is like Roger Waters came out publicly and said they made me this really large offer to use my song, and I told them to basically F off.
Yeah, I mean, and good for Roger. Good for Roger. First of all, he's a gazillionaire. Second of all, if he doesn't want, Floyd's music, used in a certain light, good for him. And,
he's obviously getting very political about this because he goes on a rant about censorship and all this stuff. So like I said, we're not a political podcast, but it is funny. It's nevertheless it's amusing.
It is amusing, and I also think that obviously I'm sure the offer came. It wasn't like he always seems to be the type. It really just Dave Grohl and Roger Waters. Both of them always seem the type to always want to catch the limelight at the most inopportune times.
Oh,
right?
totally. Totally.
But they always, because they want to just they kind of want to stay relevant. Not that they need to, but I just feel like they're always, whether it's talk about a reunion or talking about what we talked about a few weeks ago on the podcast, that kind of stuff. I just feel like this is one of those coincidental kind of moments.
Well, I agree with you, and that's going to lead me to the other hot take. But I just want to dwell on this for a second. So apparently, Zuckerberg himself reached out to Roger Waters because he's a fan, and apparently Roger Waters personally said sorry, I don't agree with what you're doing, Mark. I'm not gonna do it. That's the story, which to me is a little unbelievable.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's the way that. Yeah, go read the story. Yeah, that's what he said that has happened.
Well, that's what he said.
This is according to Roger Waters. Is it really true? Who the heck knows?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is that true? Right.
This is what's funny. So we'll just cut to the chase. So
cut to the chase, please.
They have the Animals album, the remaster, basically this re-release of Animals. It's all very convenient that all this stuff is coming up now ahead of a major release that they stand to make a lot of money from. So, I listened to this on a podcast. I think it was the Chasing Tone podcast. Richard Oliver on that had brought this up, but I think other people have brought it up too that I've heard out there, which is these guys are Roger Waters and David Gilmour manufacturing a feud to raise publicity for this.
Yeah. I heard that too. Do you think so? I don't think
I think it's quite plausible.
I think it's plausible. I don't think it's actually the case. I don't think they need to manufacture a feud because they've had real feuds, and if they they don't need the manufactured feud to actually keep this thing going. And also, what I would argue is almost direct proof that they don't need to manufacture this kind of feud. Because if you're saying it's about the money, why would he turn down the offer?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. Yeah. I agree.
They do stand to make a lot of money with this re-release of Animals, and I think that if Roger really gave a crap about making bank on something, he would have taken whatever this offer that Zuckerberg gave him. I'm sure it was the sky's the limit kind of offer, but.
Yeah, it's true, but it could be a publicity, but it still could be a publicity stunt. Like you said, maybe it's not even necessarily. I mean, in the end, it all comes down to making money. But it could be a publicity stunt, just like you and I are talking about. We've talked about them for a couple of weeks on the podcast because of this stuff,
right?
Which is funny, and I think people want to hear about it because it's freaking Pink Floyd.
Of course.
So of course we want to talk about it. But
and next week we're going to have a big Pink Floyd interview. Tease that right now.
Yes, we will. We will have a Pink Floyd interview. It might be somebody that plays in a Pink Floyd tribute band. But it'll still be. But it'll be
big.
But it's gonna be big. But it's still gonna be big. It's gonna happen, guys. It's gonna happen. But speaking of feuds, there's another thing that was in the news. Soundgarden.
Oh,
we're just shuffling through the news this week, Dave. We're just getting right to it.
We really need to have a news segment, We
need the things to pop up next to us, like on the news.
Yeah.
So anyway,
speaking of feuds, Dennis Miller on SNL.
Yeah, exactly, like that.
Kevin
like
Nealon.
the Weekend Update. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So speaking of feuds, so Soundgarden, there was this whole thing that happened with Soundgarden with the remaining members, the living members of Soundgarden, and Chris Cornell's widow, his wife. And apparently there was something that went down where she had control of all the social media and the website, basically their whole kind of electronic internet presence. She had control of all of it, and she somehow shut them all out, the remaining members of Soundgarden, out of social media and their website and all that.
Yeah,
so
now this made news. This made news when it happened. Too.
When it happened, that's right.
Yeah.
When it happened, yeah. So then what happened was, apparently this past week, they got back control. They came to some agreement with Chris Cornell's wife, his widow, and they have taken control of the social media, the Facebook page and the website and all this stuff again. But it's really interesting because apparently, like, for a long time, they didn't have, since his death, I think they haven't had control of their actual website as remaining band, as a remaining people in the band.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting divide there, right? I mean, why would she want to have full control of the website when they're founding members, right? So I don't remember all the details when it came out. I do remember hearing about it initially, some kind of feud going on, but so that also made the news. So that's interesting though. Are there any other bands that I'm just trying to think of other bands that have kind of had to disband because a members died?
Well, there's a lot. I mean,
there's a lot.
The Beatles. The biggest ones are the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, right? Where you can't go on without John McCartney. They didn't want to go on without John Bonham.
Led Zeppelin. Well, I mean, Robert Plant's career died, but he didn't die.
But that's right. Like when he died, like that was the end of the band, right?
Right.
So and of course that's the case here with Soundgarden. Not that they were super active even before, when Chris Cornell was alive. They had kind of run its course. Yes, they had done some dates and done some things, but I mean, were they even actively working on anything when he was, I
don't know.
So what I understand though from this is that there are some recordings, and there will be, like, I don't know if it's a whole album, but there will be additional songs that his estate, his widow, and who controls his estate are going to release, and she's okay.
So they're going to release
she's okay
everything.
with it. Yeah.
Which I think would be kind of cool because they had kind of gotten, Cornell had done his Audio Slave stint and run its course with that, and then I don't know if it ran its course. I don't know if they were going to plan. I don't know if they're planning on coming out with anything else.
Oh man, Audio Slave was incredible.
Oh, they were amazing.
I mean, Audio Slave. I mean, if we just talk about Audio Slave, Soundgarden was awesome. Rage was awesome. In my book, Audio Slave was better than both of them. That's probably controversial, but for me personally, I loved those Audio Slave albums.
They put out some really, really top, like, absolute. Ooh, what are you pouring?
Because it was both
more Pinot.
It was both vintage. This is actually a red Zinfandel. It was both like a vintage Cornell.
What vintage is it?
I don't know.
Speaking of.
It's a Ravenswood. You ever have Ravenswood? It's cheap.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Listen,
Dave, I just realized that the reason why you always hear the pour is because I literally pour it right next to the speaker on the iPad that we're talking on.
I think you can hear it on the. We'd like to hear your comments.
You can't hear it on my mic, but you can, because I pour it right next to the iPad we're talking on. That's why you can hear it. Anyway, it's funny.
I think it belongs into the mix of the podcast, so listeners can actually. That's a very enjoyable sound. It's kind of relaxing.
It actually is a good point. And maybe if you're listening to this at home, you could go pour yourself a drink of some kind.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'd like to hear like the pop of the cork right before you pour it too, if you can
that's
kind of manufacture that a little bit.
Yeah, I can do. I have a cork here. Maybe I'll put it back in and pop it out for you.
Just pop it right out,
Anyway,
we digress.
But Audio Slave was just so damn good.
Oh, they were incredible. I mean, they only put out 2 albums, but those 2 albums had some of the best rock music I think that had been put out in that timeline, time frame.
Yeah, it was revolutionary stuff at the time.
It really was.
I just loved it so much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Rage. I love Soundgarden. Some of the Soundgarden stuff. I just think it's incredible. right?
Well, I mean, Chris Cornell. I mean, not. I mean, in some capacity, he's a bit of an underrated vocalist. But he, I think most people in the music industry, respect what he can do on the mic.
I mean, in an era, look, Dave and I were kind of like grew up with grunge. It was kind of our era in high school. It was a popular thing. We loved it. But in an era where the singers, if we're honest, were kind of not great singers. Like people this is going to be another hot take. People think like Eddie Vedder is some amazing singer. I don't. I think he's just kind of too like mumbly. And he, yes, he can hit some pretty good notes, but he's more of a baritone, and he's good. Don't get me wrong, he's good. But Chris Cornell, the range he has, the way the things that he would write, the lines he would write. I mean, come on, the guy is head and heels above any singer from that era. He just
if you're comparing Cornell to Vedder, sure, absolutely, like bar
what
none.
other grunge singer is as good as Cornell?
But I think if you're gonna look at the no, you're right 100% right. But if you're looking at the genre itself, I think an argument can be made for Vedder too.
No, Vedder's great. He's great. He's great as a front man. He's great in terms of like the kind of emotive singing that he did. Do I think like technically he's a great singer the way that Cornell is? No, I don't.
No. I think Cornell's bag is much bigger, in terms of what he can bring to the table.
Exactly. That's kind of the point I'm making is like technically. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And Vedder kind of fits in like a kind of a smaller.
Yeah. But Vedder, there's no doubt that Vedder is great as a front man, and as a singer and songwriter, like incredible. But, Cornell just, to me, just kind of, like I said, just raised the bar, So anyway.
Oh, he totally raised the bar.
Anyway, it's cool that, the guys can get back on social media and interact with the fans. Apparently there was real issues, with the fans being really disrespectful and conspiracy theories about his death and all this craziness. And so they came out with a statement basically saying, this isn't going to be tolerated on this site. It's over.
Yeah.
So
and that's good that they did, because that's
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
honestly, it's disrespecting his memory, and it's enough of that. Even though I'm sure those people that are saying that thing don't feel like they're disrespecting him, but it's like, look, the family doesn't need to see this stuff. The remaining members don't need to see. Like, come on, like just let them rest and let it go.
Right.
So anyway,
and there's something to be, I don't know. This is maybe kind of unique to music, or maybe unique to the entertainment industry in general, but I think when somebody like Chris Cornell, or who's the guy from Linkin Park? God, I can't think of his name.
Whatever his name is,
somebody. So there's somewhat of a, I don't even know if this is the right word, and I'm not trying to offend anybody. So let me just preface it by saying that I'm not trying to offend anybody here, but there's somewhat of a artistic feel to some of this, in almost like leaving their deaths in the way they died. Just leave it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, leave it. I agree. Like I agree with you, Dave. Like there's a way that rock stars, like we romanticize it, and it's like, did these people really commit suicide? I mean, look, like let's not get it. That's too heavy for this podcast. We keep it light.
We keep it light here.
We keep it light.
We talk about death.
We keep it light here, but it is true that it's a serious freaking subject, and these people had families that went through this. And if anybody's ever lost somebody close to them to this, it's unbearable. And it's like, let's just leave these conspiracy theories and this romanticizing, let's leave it alone, and move on, right? Like, let's just grieve it and be done with it. But
right.
I think you're right. I think it's natural for these people that are iconic that this stuff out there in the public, it breeds, and it's like, oh, well, maybe this happened. Maybe it's like, look, guys.
It does, but just the fact that even just like whatever the information is that came out at the time, instead of people breeding conspiracy theories, whatever it is, whatever the supposed way of death and all that, whatever it is, just let it be. It's part of their legacy. It's just part of their legacy. It's what it is. Yep. It is what it is. And I think, again, I think it's just kind of unique to the entertainment industry. It's almost because it's such an artistic thing, not death, but just the entertainment industry.
Yeah, the entertainment industry in general. Like I'm saying, like people are like quick to jump on these like rock stars and say, oh, did that really happen? Like, yes, it did, guys. It happens. It happens to a lot of people. And it's incredibly tragic, and we need to just think about it and try to learn from it and move on, and hope to prevent it in the future.
But just let it be. Let it be. Stop. Don't ruin their legacy by creating these crazy conspiracy theories and insulting people and all this stuff.
Terrible.
But I mean, that's what social media is, right? I mean, that's just
the internet.
It's just a vehicle for the internet's just.
It's just terrible sometimes. Anyway, that was a real downer. Let's
bring it up a little bit. Speaking of the grunge,
you know what, Dave? That was getting really black. But let's talk about the Black Crowes.
Let's talk about the Black. Wow,
I'm on a roll.
This is like transition week on the Guitar Dads podcast.
Yeah, I'm on a roll. Anyway, so yeah, it's like let's lift it up a little bit. The Black Crowes.
Yeah, this is good
Tell
news.
Us the story,
Very
dude.
good news. It came out recently that the Black Crowes, just like every other band on the planet, apparently during I'm assuming during the pandemic, and as everybody knows, they were just started their Shake Your Moneymaker tour, kind of right before everything shut down, and the brothers are getting along again, and it sounds like maybe the pandemic brought them a little closer, and they've written about 20 songs to potentially go on a new album. I don't know how many is going to go on, but that's a pretty good load, and hopefully we get some good music from it.
That's really cool. I read this story. I was so excited. This is really, and here's the thing that got me excited about this story is that Chris Robinson said, Chris Robinson said, he said, I think what it was is, we're playing these songs on the Shake Your Moneymaker tour, and we're realizing how awesome it is to get back to like pure rock and roll and just playing rock songs. So that makes me think that they're writing songs in that still kind of that vein, and we might get some really cool rockin' stuff from them. I mean,
I think it's going to be incredible.
Yeah,
I don't see how it can't. And he has said. The funny thing with the brothers, and because Chris and Rich have both said in the past, and Chris said recently, I was reading an article about it. They no matter they've had their arguments on stage, backstage, all these places, but the one place they've always really come together is just the writing process.
Yes.
So, and there's a ton of great Black Crowes music out there to prove it, right? So I think this album, whatever they're going to put out, is going to be incredible.
It's going to be, I'm pretty excited about it. And like I said, I was very encouraged to hear that they were saying, getting back to our roots and when we wrote this music when we were young and what it means to us and how it's still so great. And, maybe this means they're doing similar stuff and it's going to just be killer. But I don't think we should get too excited because it sounds like they're in no hurry to like record this stuff and get it done,
Yeah, but hey, you know what? We like anticipation, especially in the music industry.
Yeah, we do.
People thrive on it, right? I mean,
that's true. We do. I mean, imagine if these guys release a Black Crowes album. This would be incredible.
I think they're going to. I think that's what this. I think that's what this says.
I would love this. Yes, I mean, this is the thing. This could happen. This is going to be so great. So. We can only hope, but let's hope. So that's great news. So, it turns out, we started this by saying this was a little bit of a slow week, but apparently enough happened for us to get
a lot of little things are kind of happening. Yeah. I mean, there's been a ton of like tour announcements, things like that, which is exciting. And
the touring is coming back full on. So, which is great.
Excellent. Great to see. Really
great
to see.
stuff. Although,
Looking
like
forward
we
to it.
talked about, this Motley Crue tour is not coming back full on,
No,
which makes me think, Dave, that your theory might be correct.
I think I'm right.
And to remind everybody, Dave's theory was they didn't postpone the tour because of COVID. They postponed the tour because of Vince Neil is not fit to do a tour.
Because every other tour is hitting the road this summer that was supposed to hit the road last summer, right?
Dave, I'm starting to believe this more and more. So, anyway.
I'm telling you. I think it's true. My sources tell me. You what?
It could be true.
I think, yeah.
Your sources.
My sources, the Google machine tells me that it's true.
The Google machine tells you it's true. Okay.
Because you can find anything on Google.
Let's get on to the gear. Let's get on to the gear section this week.
You don't want to continue the grunge path here? One more news breaker?
Okay, let's do a news breaker, which is kind of a gear thing.
Because you sent this to me, and I thought it was cool.
It's kind of a gear thing as well. So this is the gear segment, everybody. Go ahead, Dave.
The gear set. Is there intro music now?
We do need gear intro music.
Something?
We need gear intro music. Anyway.
Was there a meeting? There's only two of us.
There was a memo. You didn't miss the memo? All right, so this is gear related, but it is also music news related. And what is it, Dave?
So apparently, and we talked about a few weeks ago, we talked about a lock of Kurt Cobain's hair went. It's crazy, but I think it got auctioned off for what? I forget what the price was. It was something crazy, like tens of thousands of dollars.
Was it like 10, 15,000?
It was something crazy. Yeah, it was something nuts. And now his now famous, one of his pedals, which DOD was it?
It's the DOD grunge.
It's called the grunge, right?
It's called the grunge.
Grunge, right?
Yeah.
And which is like the sound on Nevermind. So
I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's true. I don't care enough about Nirvana to know if that's true. But it could be true.
I think. If I might be like pulling a Roger Clemens here and misremembering, but I thought I heard Josh talking about it. On the
Maybe.
JHS on his show. I think that was like the sound, but I might be wrong.
I thought they
send in comments if I am.
I thought they created that pedal after.
Oh, did they?
Nevermind came out because they wanted to capture that sound.
I could be wrong.
And that's a controversial pedal. Like, some people think it sounds great. If you go right now on Reverb, I'm sure you can get one for like $30.
I think you should get one and test it out.
But anyway, his grunge pedal, the one that a stage used Kurt Cobain DOD grunge pedal, sold for $16,000.
That is a bunch of change
for a pedal that most people consider like mediocre now.
Right, but you're not buying the pedal.
It's true. It's memorabilia.
You're buying the memorabilia. Yeah, you're buying the history.
You're right. You got it. You got it right, Dave. That it's what it is. Yep.
I mean, there are people that I'm sure own, Ace Frehley, probably like, DS1 pedals that are.
I'm sure. No, it's memorabilia. It's what it is, and it is interesting to see this Kurt Cobain stuff going up. A lock of his hair. DOD grunge pedal, whatever. It's interesting, but 16,000 for this, whatever. If that's what you're into.
People have just lots of disposable income.
Yeah, there's probably people like us, that have that probably are a lot richer than us that that grew up with it, and Nirvana means a lot to them, and this came up, and they, it's what it is. So it's pretty cool. Whatever works for you.
Whatever works, so whatever tickles your fancy.
Whatever it is, like if that's what you're into.
Whether you're into the DOD grunge or whether, whatever tickles you, or maybe like something that vibrates might tickle you too. Speaking of vibrato, you want to get into this, the gear? You want to get into the gear? You want to get into the gear? Yeah, let's do gear. Because you sent this to me and I had seen it. I had seen it come across and I was like, I don't even know if I want to click on this thing and read about it. Because it kind of looked... Oh, really? It kind of looked gimmicky to me. It looks gimmicky to you? Well, just the look of it. Yeah, no, I mean, okay, we should definitely talk about it. All right, let's talk about this thing. But hold on. All right, I will give you the up down of it. But hold on. You know what that music means? Yeah, we need to have like segment music, definitely.
That's time for the lightning round. Dave, this is a surprise lightning round for you.
Oh no, lightning round. All right.
You know what that music
Man, this is as like for those of you who haven't listened to the pod before, we do a lightning round where I usually ask Matt 3 questions. He doesn't know what they are, and he has 5 seconds to answer it. If he doesn't answer and he doesn't get any of them right, then he doesn't win the prizes, which is really nothing.
And so Dave surprised me a couple weeks ago with the lightning round, so I figured I'd do the same to him. It's all in good fun. Dave, did I get the music right at least?
I think that sounds very familiar.
It does sound familiar. I don't know. It's basically random stuff I found.
Random game show.
Game show. so anyway,
I knew I could see you doing something over there.
Yeah, you knew I was up to something because I was like, Dave, keep stalling so I can do this. So I can do this thing so we can play this.
And don't make me talk about this gimmicky pedal.
All right, anyway. Well, I do want to talk about that. But anyway. All right, here's a lightning round. The lightning round will be, how many questions is it, Dave? 5 questions?
I think whatever you come up with, yeah.
Okay, I got some questions off the top of my head. I didn't really plan this out all that well. But here we go. You got 5 seconds to answer. Strat or Telly?
Telly.
Oh, he's close. I thought that was going to be hard for you because you got the Strat. We're going to discuss this after. Tube Screamer or Klon type pedal?
Oh man, I gotta say Screamer.
Really? Well, okay. You're doing well.
Anything I can do to shock you.
You're doing well. Let's see. How about?
Man, you really planned this one out well. Huh?
For amps. Wait. I got it.
For the win.
For this is what it is. Amp distortion or pedal distortion?
Ooh. Are we talking? Oh, geez, I can't ask questions.
I gotta push you.
Pedals.
Wow. Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
Well, if I was allowed to ask a question to kind of lead me in one direction, I know, but I'm not allowed to. It's just the rules of the game. Sorry, folks. Okay. I was going to ask about stacking.
Okay, that's all I got. So, congratulations, you won the lightning round.
I won the lightning round. What did I win? Did I win a DoD pedal?
You won a DoD.
Grunge, a DoD grunge?
You know what, Dave? You won a DoD grunge pedal, but not one from Kurt Cobain.
Not
some random one that I'm going to buy on Reverb for $30.
All right, I look forward to playing it.
It's probably going to be broken too. But anyway, that's what you get. But actually, that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting thing I was thinking about today is amp distortion, because I got the Jubilee and it's the amp distortion, and I don't really need like all the crazy drive pedals I have. Well, I do use a bunch of drive pedals with the Jubilee. But what do you think, Dave? Like you pretty much said you hesitated a little bit and then you went to the pedals. So you really feel that you need the pedals?
Well, I mean, I guess if you talking, so if you're putting those two things in a vacuum, a pedal and amp, I don't know. That's a tough.
Like, would you? I guess it boils down to: do you feel that distortion? Do you feel like it's better to have some options of distortion? You know, I mean, and we can use like kind of distortion and drive in the same way. Do you feel like amp drive and distortion is better? Like if you're looking for a grunge, let's put it this way.
Depends on the
for a dirty sound.
Yeah, you just dirty. Okay, yeah. I was going to say, what sound are you looking for?
I know you don't play gigs, but if you're going to play a gig,
then if I'm going to play a gig, then you're going to turn my amp off,
and you want to,
yeah,
and you want to do. Say you're going to play a gig, and you want a dirty sound. And you have like, and let's just like hypothetically say like you have any amp at your disposal and any pedal at your disposal. Like what are you going to use for your drive sound?
Well, what are we playing? What kind of gig?
We're playing like rock and roll music.
Rock and roll from what era?
I don't know, whatever you want. Like if you were in a band, what would you play?
I mean, okay, so let's say
you're in an Aerosmith cover band.
Oh, an Aerosmith cover band. Jeez. I mean, Perry used so many different things. Yeah,
so what would you use? This is actually good.
I don't know. A Univibe? I'd have to.
If you're in an Aerosmith tribute band, what are you using for your amp? We know you're going to use a Les Paul. What are you going to use for your amp and pedal setup? Don't worry about all the time-based stuff. Just the drive distortion for your drive tone. How are you going to achieve that?
Oh, my man, I don't know, because, geez, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't know. I mean, we're talking probably, like Marshall amps, right?
Yeah. So would you just, I mean, I think yeah. Okay. Go
ahead. You know what? I don't know. I don't, so back in the, I mean, Perry's gone through so many different, you're putting a real tough,
this is so
hard.
Funny. I know. I love
really funny.
I love how you can't answer this.
Well, I can't answer it because name an Aerosmith era, because you'd have to kind of go by that, right? Because Perry's gone through so many different, like, you know.
It's true. It's true.
Different amps and, I mean, and sounds and guitars and.
Yeah.
You know,
but if you're looking
the early stuff, he was on. He wasn't playing Les Pauls, you know.
Yeah. So what? You know, like the classic kind of. You know, the sound that it's all this kind of sound.
I think you'd have to be like probably you'd have to probably use like a tube screamer or something like that, right? I mean, or a Klon, probably the Klon, right?
Yeah,
I would assume like
right.
the Klon for Perry's sound.
If I was going to answer you for something like Aerosmith that's so classic, I would say a Marshall Plexi turned all the way up. No pedals. Just a Marshall Plexi turned all the way up is what for Aerosmith.
What did he back in the day? What did he play?
I mean, it all. This is the thing. Whether or not you're using pedals or not for that type of classic rock sound, you know, like what you could consider the AC/DC sound, which influenced people. And what you could say, I mean, I agree with you. Joe Perry did a lot of kind of different things.
AC/DC is a different conversation because Angus doesn't use pedals.
Yeah, exactly. But you think about like Joe Perry, like it all revolves around that like cranked Marshall Plexi,
right? You
know, distortion sound. So for me, I would say if I were to answer the question, I would probably say, okay, I'd probably have a Marshall like a Plexi type amp turned all the way up, like a super lead turned all the way up. And then,
you know what?
But practically, but that's not practical because it would be so loud it would kill you.
So it's interesting you bring this up today because earlier on I was listening to the Rig Rundown podcast, and one of the you know who Whiskey Myers is. You like them. I introduced you to them.
Yeah. They're good band.
They're great.
Yeah.
They're a great band. If you don't know Whiskey Myers, check them out. They're a great rock band. They were doing what's this? John Jeffers, I think is his name, is the guitarist.
Okay.
And he's a Vox guy and he's a Les Paul guy.
Oh.
And he loves to play on he loves his neck pickup because he thinks it kind of works well.
Oh, interesting.
With the Vox amp, right? So
it probably
it's got
does.
that kind of chirpy high end, real sound out of the Vox, and then he can kind of tone it down a little bit with on the neck. And he's not really a real technical player, and he was talking about that too. So he's even when he'll play lead, he'll just use a volume pedal and stay on the neck sometimes. And he just loves those amps. So it depends. Now he has great tone, right? You probably would never know that's what he was doing, but it's a hard question to really answer.
It is a hard question, really, but I mean, this is the thing. Like Pete Thorne actually put out a cool video that talked about like old school amp distortion. He was basically talking about power tube saturation distortion as opposed to preamp distortion, which is in most, pretty much like most amps these days they're getting their driven tone from the preamp section, which is still driven by tubes, but it's not the same as the old Plexis that in order to even get a driven sound, you got to turn up the volume. So when they didn't have a master volume, right? And, now Marshall has like a 5-watt version of the the classic Plexi. They have this, it's called the Studio Classic 20, and it goes down to 5 watts, and it's mainly 20 watts. But even like the Jubilee in the JCM 800 and all these classic amps from the 80s, that's in the 80s is really when that preamp distortion came in. Right, where people were really where the amps really got super gainy in that way. Prior to that, it was like there were some pedals you could use. Other than that, it was just turn the freaking amp up. Like Jimmy Page, Hendrix, the Who. All these people were just turning Marshalls up to get the driven tones, which is kind of unbelievable to me, but that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? So, and that's why, like, you know, people like Wampler have gotten so good at creating these pedals that do that thing, right? And then these pedals that sweeten up already dirty amps. So
I think you need on your board a plexi drive.
So the answer, well, this is the thing. I would be interested in something like a plexi drive if I played clean amps. I don't play clean amps. I play distorted. I you know, like I said, if I had to answer this question, it would be I like amp distortion, even if it is preamp distortion from an amp. I like the tube driven sound. I just like it. To me, like, and don't get me wrong, I have like the Friedman BEOD, which is kind of like a Friedman in a box pedal. And when you play that through like a sparkling clean pedal platform, it like breathes fire. It's so good. Right. So like this, and the plexi drive is the same. The plexi drive will do that thing, but you got to play it in it's not something that's, what I really like is drive pedals that like tubes. That's why I love tube screamers, because they just sweeten up and just push over these already dirty amps kind of over the edge. The same with the Klon type pedals. Work incredibly well with a dirty amp. So that's my thing. But anyway, an interesting thing for us to discuss.
No, it's a very interesting topic. And it definitely, you took me by surprise on that, but it's a very interesting topic.
I took you by surprise. What are you looking up over there?
We'll talk about that later.
All right, we are getting to the end of the podcast, but I just want to call out the other thing that came out that's kind of taking the gear world by storm right now. Dave started to talk about it. It's the Bigsby pedal. It's basically a pedal, and this is made by Game Changer Audio, who interestingly released a pedal a few years back that looks like a piano sustain pedal, like the pedal that's on like the bottom of a piano. They released that, which is kind of a popular pedal, and now they're releasing this thing in concert with Fender, who owns Bigsby. It's a pedal that looks like a Bigsby tremolo, and supposedly it's going to sound like one. So when you put your foot on it and it's spring loaded, it's essentially like having a Bigsby but under your foot.
Yeah.
It's cool, Dave.
It's cool, yeah, but I just think you know what? In pedal form, it would be cool. I just think it was a little gimmicky the way they designed it, like looking like a.
Well, it looks like a Bigsby on the floor, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, we'll talk about
kind of
this
cool.
more.
I don't know how to feel about it.
Let's talk about it more when the demos come out and when we can hear what it sounds like, because it sounds kind of like a cool thing, honestly.
And when you buy one.
Yeah, I mean, I probably will just get one.
You will.
Just to screw around with it and have fun.
And just so you know, just as an update from last week, because I think we talked about this before we came on, we were talking off air about when you go to Nashville, you've already planted the seed, the tone deaf seed that you might be coming back.
Yeah, I already told my wife. Yeah.
I'm
like, look, there's this new Gibson garage in Nashville. It might be too tempting for me not to walk out of there with a guitar. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned for that too, folks. So much suspense for next week's podcast.
And that is this week's Guitar Dads podcast.
Catch you guys on the flip.